All right, track oneers, come on in, sit down, pull up a chair. You are in for the best talk of your life. Corey's going to kill me for saying that. I suppose I better introduce Corey. It's pretty easy because I work with Corey. Corey is a red teamer, threat emulation kind of guy that works at Black Hills Information Security. I work with Corey a lot. In fact, Corey's kind of my customer. I actually give him lots of evil malware to use on a frequent basis. So it's a lot of fun. And look, there's one thing about Corey that I got to say is if you want a vigorous discussion about any topic, Corey will bring it to you every single time. The other thing I'll say about Corey is if there's data to be had, Corey's got the data, right? He loves data. In fact, he'll do things with data that you've never seen being done before, and then he'll ask somebody else to do the rest. Okay?
That's so pertinent.
This is Corey Ham. He's going to do a thing about OSINT or OSINT. No, how do we say it? No, I had this argument with Micah Hoffman once. It's OSINT. And Corey is a really fabulous colleague. We love working with him, and I think you'll really enjoy this talk. Take it away, Corey Ham.
Woo! Thank you, Joff. That is true that I just tell Joff to do work all the time and then just hope it gets done. And it usually does. So welcome to my talk. It's an OSINT talk. I kind of made the title a little bit too complicated, and I apologize for that. It's an open source intelligence talk. If you didn't know what OSINT is, that's what it is. It's open source intelligence, which what that means is basically any information that can be obtained from a public source. So we'll dig into more about what that means later, but for anyone that's a super beginner, that's what OSINT is. So what is this talk? If you came here, should you leave? Should you stay? Hopefully I convince you to stay. So I'm going to introduce a resource that I made to help you make decisions about what tools, techniques, or sites to use when you do OSINT tasks. I'm going to talk about my approach and provide some kind of generalized recommendations about how OSINT can be made more effective. And I'm going to talk about my experience, which my experience is a red teamer at Black Hills. And I've been a red teamer at other companies as well. I focus on the attacker perspective. So if you're looking for like defensive OSINT, I'm not great at it, but I am an OSINT enjoyer. I like my OSINT. I actually do it for fun, which sounds ridiculous, but it is fun. I've used it out of necessity, and I've also done it for fun, like scraping, just messing around, seeing what you can see. And as Joff mentioned, I love data. I love gathering data. Like you can download all of Common Crawl, just 2 terabytes of web scrape data. Why wouldn't you do that? You have the hard drives, you can. It's an option. Some disclaimers. This talk contains opinions. It contains biases, assumptions, and of course, your mileage may vary. OSINT is a changing space. You might look at something one day and next day it doesn't work. And there's lots of use cases. I'm an offensive operator. A lot of the stuff is going to be focused on offensive, and I can't cover every use case. If you're doing like legal evidence for some case, that's a whole different use case. It's a whole different set of skills and tools you're going to need. So what's the idea? What is the idea for this talk? OSINT is super easy to get started. You can just start Googling, that's OSINT. But there's so much out there. There's so many tools. There's so many data sources. Sometimes it's difficult to judge the quality of the data. You're like pulling information down. You don't know if it's real. Is it fake? Is someone just setting up a fake website to download fake data? And they require, a lot of OSINT tasks require human brains. Like validating something, whether it's legitimate or not, oftentimes takes a human brain. You have to look at it and say, this looks legitimate to me, or it doesn't look legitimate to me, or this is the same person, but they're like a different angle, or it's just difficult sometimes. And I think existing OSINT resources, they lack curation. So there's huge lists of 1,000 tools, 1,000 links, which I am somewhat guilty of that as we walk through, but it's difficult to see like what data am I even going to be getting back from this tool? So if I go to this website, I sign up for a trial, what am I even getting back? Am I getting back email? Am I getting back usernames? Am I getting back like screenshots? Who knows? And also for beginners, it can be difficult to like put your tool or your technique into a workflow. So like if your goal is to investigate a specific individual, how does this tool fit into that workflow? So like business email enumeration is a classic one, meaning like you have a list of employees for a company. That's your goal, is to gather that. There's a lot of different ways to do that. You could approach social media, just scrape a bunch of business emails from social media. They say they have their company on their social media profile. You can just add their username to their email domain. Or you could just go in data breaches. You could just go and pull a bunch of usernames out of a data breach. Totally different ways of doing it, probably both effective. You could also just pull statistically likely usernames. Like what John Smith might work at a big company. There's probably someone that works there. There's also some time wasters. So for free products, like getting it running can take time. It takes time to sign up for a trial, use a fake email, use a fake credit card, like getting all this stuff going, getting your keys, integrating it into a tool, setting up a proxy if you're doing large scraping environment. And with hosted tools, oftentimes they have limitations. So like you can get 50 queries for free, or you can get, you can get X amount of results, but then it paywalls you. And hosted tools, often they don't allow like bulk export. So like if you're going to a website like Hunter, they let you see a bunch of usernames, but you can't always download them in bulk. So you might have to use API integrations. So that's sort of the problem. And we also have to decide, do we build something or do we just buy it? Do we just say, I'm just going to purchase a tool that just gives me all these emails and I'm not going to try to do it myself? So that's sort of the problem. The solution, and this is hopefully the solution or my solution, is that over time, OSINT practitioners or operators, they build a list of their go-to tools, their preferred tool, or their, what they like to use. Why can't we share that? Why can't we say, oh, Shodan is the best for this, or oh, LinkedIn is the best LinkedIn scraper, or whatever. So this site is the solution. As you might have noticed, my slides are just on a GitBooks page, which is public to the internet. So anyone can go to this URL. It's tiny, but it's just okb.goldmine.sh. And you can browse through the site and see. It's basically a knowledge base that I made. I've tried to focus on metrics. When we're analyzing a tool, let's focus on, like for business email enumeration, how many emails are we getting back? That's a good metric for like a tool's usefulness. If it's a company of 50,000 people, you run the tool and you get 1,000 people back, it might not be a great tool. Fall back to opinions where metrics don't make sense. So, you might be able to compare a tool by results, but for training, you can't just like be like, oh, it was 16 hours. That's better than 8 hours of training. So maybe your opinion can help. A quick tangent. I did want to address the whole build versus buy thing since I put it in the title of the talk. So if you were to build everything, you would have a $1,500 sandwich in 6 months. So this is kind of a famous story, but basically there's this YouTube channel called How to Make Everything. And the guy started from complete scratch and decided to make a chicken sandwich. So he dug up a field and planted wheat, and then he grew the wheat, and then he raised a chicken from a very small egg, and then slaughtered the chicken, and flew across the country to learn how to do all this stuff. And as you can see from his face, it wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It consumed 6 months of his life, and he calculated the cost to be about $1,500, which for a sandwich that isn't bad, I think $1,500 is a little pricey. And if you buy everything, your budget is going to be not acceptable. You're going to get overlapping data. You're going to get data you have no use for, like, oh, I bought a OSINT database that gives you access to the, Flying Pig Aficionados Club or whatever. Like, it's not, you just get useless information. You'll probably get fired if you work for a company, or you'll just run out of money and go in debt. And you'll probably still have to integrate the tools that you bought. So if you bought every tool, they're not just going to automatically work into your environment. You're going to have to build APIs. You're going to have to build things that build those tools into whatever your workflow is. So
can I interrupt you really quick?
Yeah.
Is there any chance that you could make your font a little bit bigger?
Possibly. Can I just zoom in?
Perfect.
Is that a thing?
That would be awesome. Thank you.
I'm just going to zoom in. Sorry. Yeah.
I know everybody was thinking it, so I just was helping you out. Okay.
You can browse along on your phone or your tablet or whatever if you can't see as an option. So a balanced approach is best. Some assembly is always required. Like I said, you're going to have to integrate tools that you purchased. If you're deploying a free tool, you're going to have to build it into your infrastructure. And there's always a component of automation. Like a tool works well once, but maybe you need to do it again and again and again. So mixing is the best way to go. So here's some quick examples. If you're looking for a good option to buy, internet-sized attack surface data, meaning like a Shodan or a Risk IQ, you probably shouldn't build that. You're scanning the entire internet once a day. That's going to cost ungodly amounts in hosting fees. Your bandwidth are going to get blocked from everywhere. It's just probably not feasible unless if you're the person who needs to do this, you didn't question it, you just did it. But like Shodan is very affordable and has this data just available. Good examples of what you should build. Profile enumeration by username. I'll walk through like my analysis of a bunch of tools that do that. It's really easy to build. Just like the tool is Sherlock, and it's just, you just clone it, install the requirements and run it. It'll give you a list of profiles for a user. Super easy. Another thing that's good to build is anything that doesn't exist. So if you're scraping a site that no one has scraped before, you're going to have to build it. Or if you have a very specific use case, you're going to have to build the thing for that use case because no one else has done it, or at least they haven't talked publicly about it. So I've kind of said, this is my solution. I figured we could walk through an example of some content that I wrote. So I kind of have it broken down into two like categories. Workflows are like specific input, output workflows of like, I'm going to start with a profile or a username, and I'm going to end up with a list of their social media accounts. A category is just like a generic source. Like Shodan is a category of like internet-sized attack surface data. It's just, it is what it is. You can use it for a lot of different things. So let's walk through a page. Profile discovered by username. So this is just, I list the input. The input is a username. The output is a list of profiles that are affiliated with that username. Here's the methodology. I think it makes sense to define like, how are we going to analyze this at the very top? So you can see like, is this a reasonable way to measure this tool or this approach? So basically I checked my own username. I counted the number of profiles for each tool, and I counted the number of false positives. I didn't count mismatches. Like if there's a Fortnite user called Jam423, that might not be me, but I still count it. If it fails to check the site though, then I counted that against the tool. Then I just rated, there's some ratings in here, which I kind of am mixed feelings about this, but basically like how hard is it to deploy? How good is the output? Is it JSON formatted or is it just a file? And then the development health, is it getting actively updated? And the automation potential. So just a lot of information about the tool. So the pick, as I mentioned, is called Sherlock. That's a really great tool. If you've never heard of it. You can basically, it's Python, which as you'll see, I say that's medium difficulty because it could just be a binary to run, but here's some output. It's super easy. Just says here, I found the Bandcamp, Code Academy, Discogs, all these sites. This is this profile of this user. The file output is super easy to use. So there was 38 results, which is a lot, and there was 0 false positives, which I thought was really impressive. I'll scroll through some of the other tools. False positives are very common with this like approach. 7 of those results were not me, but were valid accounts, so I still counted them. Deploying Sherlock, I said medium difficulty just because it's Python. Some people, like, I don't love deploying Python, especially when it's like weird requirements and you have all the SHA signatures of the pip packages. It gets weird, but it has a Docker container, so I feel like that's a plus. Output is just standard out, so it's just like literally the list of profiles. Not great, but I'd prefer JSON personally, but I'll allow it. It's file output. A lot of places don't even, or a lot of tools don't even have file output. There's recent commits. This task, profile discovery, is very like time intensive because you're basically checking a URL against a specific site, like ebay.com/ and then the username. That changes on a regular basis. So as we look at other tools, you'll see that they check URLs that don't exist. The site returns a 200, even though it's a 404, and then it says the profile exists. Automation potential, I put it as high because even though it has a Docker container, you could just Dockerize it super easy, have a runner that runs the container, has the input, and then just gathers the output as a file and deploys it wherever you need. I did not test this at scale, meaning like enumerating a ton of usernames. If you were to enumerate like probably over 100,000 usernames, you would start getting blocked on a lot of these sites. Almost every internet site has bot detection, so you would probably hit that if you did a large scale environment, but you could just proxy it or whatever. So looking at some of the other output, this is a tool called What Is My Name or What's My Name? Cool tool, but 75 false positives. So like 65% of the results are false positives. A lot more results, but like I don't have an account on 1001mem.ru. Like if you go to this page, it's just like a generic Russian error page. I don't know why it thinks it exists. So just some other, there's a lot of hosted tools for this. So this is a site called NameCheck. It just kind of highlights the colors. Like if it's green, it's a valid account. If it's red, it's not. 25 total results. Web deployment's like 5 clicks, super easy. But there's no file output, which means you can't like automate this. You can't really use this in it's got to be one person that you're looking at and that's it. And if you click on the profile links, it just takes you to like the sign up page for the website. So not super useful. You're like, I didn't want to sign up for a Spotify account. I want to see their playlists. And then, I won't walk through the whole page, but basically I analyzed all the tools I could find that do this. There's a bunch of them. Username check usernames. This one looks like it's made in 2005. This script actually just straight up doesn't work. It's like a web wrapper for NameCheck, but they put NameCheck behind Cloudflare, so it just doesn't work. And then I also have a little fun template of like, if you wanted to build your own version, if you wanted to analyze a tool, you just copy and paste this, put in the results. So obviously not the most interesting topic, but this is the concept. Is we would do this, I would do this, or everyone would do this for a bunch of tools. And then you build a list of, okay, this is the best tool for this. This is the best tool for that. So that's the goal, that's the talk. So I also wanted to walk through a category. So I built this. This is a little bit more kind of loose. It's not as harder to do metrics. I wanted to talk about public breaches. This is a topic that personally I have done a lot of development in. My pick, my personal choice would be to build a custom Elasticsearch cluster for this. I think that you can get, here I linked, you can go to breach forums, you can download terabytes of data. They're not that hard to parse. You can import them into Elasticsearch, and I would recommend using Spark or Jupyter to do that. So this is complicated. I want to work more to build an actual guide doing this. There's some legal stuff that's preventing me from doing that, but basically this is what I'd recommend if you're going to build your own. If you're not going to build your own, I would recommend Dhashed. That is the kind of standard for this. It's a website. It's like dhashed.something.com.io. And it has it's a relatively cheap fee, and they give you access to quite a bit of breached public breach data. So they give you usernames, passwords. Some sensitive data is censored, they call it law enforcement level censorship, where social security numbers or credit cards it definitely has an offensive type of focus to it, but could be used by defenders. And then I think Have I Been Pwned is also worth it personally. It's really cheap. Dhash doesn't do breached notifications. If a new breach comes with your account in it, it won't tell you. Whereas Have I Been Pwned will. They have an enterprise account that basically just they'll tell you someone from your company was breached, which is really cool, and it's super cheap. And then also Intel X is a thing. I don't know what the pricing is like, but so back to the talk. The point of the talk is I'm trying to convince all of you to contribute. So I want to build this as a resource that everyone can contribute to. I have a guide on how to contribute, which we'll go through, but I'm sure everyone in this room right now knows something about OSINT that I don't. And I would love for you to give your opinion and your feelings about the tools that you prefer to use. So here's, if you were going to contribute, if it's a workflow, what's your testing procedure? Is it repeatable? Is it something that everyone else would think is reasonable as a procedure? If you've used any of this before, add your experience. Like I said, if you have used a very, especially the larger products, like a Recorded Future as an example. I hear a lot about this product. It probably costs a ton of money, and I can't just download it as a user and start using it. But I'm sure it's powerful. I'd love to hear someone's opinion on it. Or if it's something completely new, if you're doing your own research, if you're building your own tool, add it. I take pull requests. That's the whole idea. So contributing is super easy. As you can see, there's this little edit on GitHub page. You could just click that. They'll take you to the GitHub page where this is all hosted. It's in Gitbook, which is like basically Markdown. It's all Markdown. You can edit it. You can make a pull request. Super easy. Like it's all, you just walk through, enter your content, and then submit the pull request, and I'll review it, probably approve it. And then also, if you're more interested in this at like a higher level, you can actually get a Gitbook account, and then I can add you as like a curator to the space. So you can be a curator and help like reorganize pages or more like in-depth edits that aren't just adding content. If you're like, I want to add a whole new category, I want to dig into this much deeper, that would probably be a better option. But I put my Discord handle there. You can just message me and say, invite this email, and then in Gitbook, you'll make a pull request, and I'll be able to diff it and see all the changes and all that. So that's my pitch. I also wanted to give some kind of generic OSINT thoughts. So first of all, consider OPSEC before you start. Like a lot of people you get going, you start Googling, you start downloading, you start grabbing information. But keep in mind that your intelligence gathering is someone else's intelligence. So like if you're doing a bunch of queries on dehashed, they might be collecting the data on those queries and using them for whatever their purpose is. Michael Basil, or I hope that's how you say his name, he has a great book that kind of walks you through how to like make a clean image of a VM and use it for OSINT, and then have it be like admissible evidence for like if you were going to do like an investigation for a crime-related thing. This is great for that. But yeah, basically, if you're going to do OSINT that's going to be used by law enforcement in any capacity, you should start with a completely clean image so that nothing you gather, because otherwise anything you include in that image is going to be part of the evidence. Like it's, if you just had your SSH key is now part of this investigation. Automate anything you can with OSINT. It can take forever to walk through like, the hundred. I really like, there's nothing more satisfying than just building an API wrapper. Just quick Python, Jupyter, whatever, build something that pulls down whatever data you're trying to pull down and stores it in a file. And it's satisfying, it's easy, and you can keep it. If you can't build a wrapper script or something, just store it. Store your procedure. Write a checklist of how you do it. Start here, start on Google, type in this dork, type in this URL, and then if you want, you can contribute it on here. And also always keep your output. So I love tools that output in JSON. That's just my personal, like anything that's structured, but JSON is kind of the standard for structured data. So like it just has, it's simple key value pairs. You can parse it later no matter what format it is. So if you're running any tool that outputs data, just save it. Just keep it safe. That's my like inner data hoarder talking, but I really like personally storing everything in Elk or in Elastic. Newer versions of Elastic, they're really good at just auto mapping JSON files. So like you can literally here's like an example. You can just make a post request to Elastic that it'll automatically parse this JSON and make it into like mappable fields that you can read in Elastic or in Kibana. So it's super easy. Even like a mass output, it'll figure it out. It'll just like figure out how to deal with it. So I guess like I'll walk through some more content on the site since we're kind of ahead. So I also reviewed like live host data. So that's like Shodan competitors or Shodan. So Shodan is my buy pick. I think Shodan is incredibly useful. They have a decent amount of data, like 137 million results is actually pretty good. That's for port 443. It's $69 a month or up to 1,000, but they do like sales on a pretty regular basis of having like, you can purchase a key, like a lifetime key that's like $50 or whatever. So some Shodan usage tips I have here. You can use net filters. You can use JARM, which is a thing that maybe people don't know about. Actually, Steve, who's in the audience, taught me about JARM. It's basically, JARM is a TLS fingerprint, meaning like the way that a site does a TLS handshake is a fingerprintable action. And you can actually like, the idea is you can find other internet assets that have the same TLS interaction anywhere in the world. So like an example of how we used it in an operation is we pulled the JARM hash for their VPN portal. So the company had like a Palo Alto VPN or whatever. You pull the JARM hash for that. There's a tool that you can use to pull the hash. And then you can just search ssl.jarm. There's the hash. And that will show you every other instance of that same TLS fingerprint anywhere in the world. So that actually gave us the ability to find other VPN servers in other countries that we previously were unaware of and actually target them and like, access them. And you can stack queries like just by spacing them out, super easy. There's organization filters in Shodan, so you can do like Verizon Business or same thing with like SSL CNs. You can even wildcard these. Like here's a SSL certificate subject common name. It's super useful for finding like other assets owned by your target that aren't in your list. Binary Edge is also a pretty good resource for this. They actually have more results for port 443 than Shodan does at 163 million, but it's a little bit kind of limited and it doesn't gather banners. It doesn't snag like certain vulnerability data, but they do have torrent data. So that's kind of cool. There's a free account on this too, which is nice. LeakIX, this is kind of an interesting site people might not be aware of. They actually are kind of gray hat, like you can't tell if it's good people or bad people running it, but they actually have like, you can publish reports of like, here's all the CVEs that affect, or here's all the assets that this CVE affects. It's kind of cool. And then Risk IQ, another cool tool. It basically just, it has a free account. I think this just got bought by Microsoft, so might not be around forever, but it is cool. I also have like some huge lists. I couldn't resist and I'm adding more, but like as an example, the threat intelligence list is just, there's like, 40 tools. I don't do threat intelligence, so I haven't had time, but I'm sure people have used these tools and I'd love to hear what you think. There's actually some cool tools for searching for code repositories. If you don't pull your own version of this, grep.app, it's a cool site. Basically searches through like 500,000 Git repositories, not just on GitHub. You can filter by language type. You can filter by like number of followers. It's actually a pretty cool tool. There's one called Search Code. It does Bitbucket, GitLabs. It does private stuff in addition to GitHub, or I guess third party, not private, but. And then there's some blockchain stuff. I'm a big blockchain person. Dune Analytics is a really cool resource. I would recommend just checking out. They do a lot of like, it has user creatable dashboards. So you can actually go and like make a dashboard of like, here's all the cash flow in and out of a DeFi environment. You can look at that. You can like, it's good for anomaly detection, that kind of stuff. Etherscan, kind of the ubiquitous one. BigQuery is like a Google Cloud product. I saw Google Cloud's here, so. But yeah, I think I'll just finish early, maybe some questions. But yeah, basically the talk, please use this. Please go here and contribute, or at least just read it and get something out of it. It took me way longer than I expected to build even this amount of content on a knowledge base. It's super intensive building like curated content. So if anyone contributes, I would really appreciate it. But I think everyone has a valid opinion in the world of OSINT. Everyone's use case is unique. Everyone's like approach is interesting. And so I'd love to capture that information. And I am building more content. Like I said, it took way more time to build this amount than I expected, but I'm just going to keep doing this because this is kind of what I do for fun. So more is coming. But yeah, please use it and enjoy. I guess any questions? Wow,
Corey, super fast talk. Oh, yeah.
Woo.
Okay. So we have some time. Has anybody got any questions for Corey on his OSINT Pigs Really Can Fly talk?
It depends. So the question was for anyone that didn't hear
repeat the question, please.
Yeah. So the question was, do you use personas for OSINT activity? Do you make sock puppets is another term for this. So the answer is, it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing anything that involves interacting with a target, or if you're doing anything on social media, the answer is yes. You shouldn't use your own personal social media account, especially like LinkedIn. It tells you when people view your LinkedIn profile. So like, if you're, I'm an employee at Black Hills Information Security viewing someone's profile, wonder what's happening there. But yeah, social media, it's easy to get your accounts banned on social media because you're doing things that you're not really supposed to do by the terms of use. So yes, the answer is yes. But if it's like gathering data from dehashed, I just use like a fake burner email. I would strongly recommend you can use like Fastmail or iCloud to like create basically infinite email aliases, and you can just use them. They're one-off, one usage. So then you don't use your real email, which is like how all these data breaches happen, is people reuse their emails. So it depends on the application or the usage, but the answer is yes.
All right, thanks for that question. If anybody else has a question and don't have a particularly loud voice, feel free to come here and to the microphone. This is not a wireless mic, unfortunately, and you can stand up front and ask the question.
Yeah, any OSINT questions, hit me.
Let's go. Any other questions?
We have time.
Surely there's a question.
Don't be afraid. Your question isn't stupid.
There are no bad questions. Okay, I guess that's it then. Well, thanks very much, Corey Ham.
Use it.
Oh, we have a question. Sorry.
Sort of a hybrid offense-defense question here, but as far as OSINT goes, do you have any idea how this relates to how an actual attacker from, say, Eastern Europe would go about this?
So and correct me if I'm wrong, the question was basically, do real attackers use OSINT? Is that the question?
Yes, I will use the mic again. Do you have any idea how your methods documented here relate to their methods that they use in the real world or in their world?
Okay, so basically the question is, do the methods that I've documented or that, white hat hackers use, do they relate to what black hat hackers do? That's a great question. I'm not a threat intelligence expert. There's definitely people walking around here that could answer it much better. I would assume yes. I would guess that a lot of the reason that sites have CAPTCHAs on them is because threat actors are using them, scraping them. We know this data goes up for sale a lot. We know that people scrape Facebook, LinkedIn, all these sites and sell the data. So that's like a black hat activity. Definitely, as we know from many events, people make social media troll farms and other, examples of social media abuse. So as far as like cybersecurity related, I can't speak to what specific tactics they use, but I would just assume they're the same or at least close enough.
So we have a couple of questions from Discord really quick.
Sure.
One is you mentioned earlier that you were limited moving forward due to some legal issues. The question is really, can you expand in general on the legal considerations around that earlier point?
Sure. So basically, it is legally kind of fraught to have a database of breach data that is just shared publicly because as I understand it, I'm not a lawyer, but as I understand it, with breach data, it is okay and legal to possess it, and it is okay to use it as long as your intent is not malicious. So it is hard as a person that's providing this information to people to justify your intent. You have to control who has access to it. You have to control usage, or at least have some basic KYC type of deal where you're checking who is using this data, how are they using it, especially because when we're talking about breach data specifically, we're talking about potentially much more sensitive data than just username and password. We're talking about geolocation information, not just address, but like, here's my IP address, here's my recent phone geolocation. You're talking about social security numbers, voter records with like full, tax ID numbers. We're talking about things that can be used maliciously. And so it's really legally a bad idea to just be like, anyone have at it. Here's an Elasticsearch instance that just has access to every breach. So that's what I was referring to.
We have another question in the Discord from wading through logs, and that is, what is the most interesting way that you have used OSINT?
Okay, that's that. Wade, I see you. What is the most interesting way that I've used OSINT? I'm just going to say social engineering as like a broad answer that just kind of means everything and nothing at the same time. There's many war stories of like using social engineering, getting specific information about people, and then especially SMS phishing. I think OSINT makes SMS phishing that much better. First of all, you have to get their phone number in the first place. So you have to use OSINT to find someone's phone number. Then you SMS phish them, and you use specific information about either them or their company to sort of tailor that. So that's, I think, the coolest. There's people out there that do way cooler OSINT stuff than me that are like doing all these cool investigations and like going after Russians and stuff. But on the attacker side, it's really more about utility and getting a large amount of data back in a short amount of time and then figuring out how to weaponize it. So I think phishing is one of those things where you can go as deep as you want. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. But thanks, Wade.
Okay. And in the room, are there any other questions from the audience here in the room? Yes, sir. Can you yell really loud, or you want the mic? Louder.
No, right. Right. Okay. Okay. So the question was basically, how do you deal with data aging? So we're talking about, OSINT in general. It's captured at a point in time. It's captured at, a timestamp of 2021, December 10th or whatever. How do you handle that? Because with breach data, especially, it does like the password, obviously, even in AD, the password are probably going to be rotated. So like, how do you handle that? I guess I would say, first of all, if you can, collect new information like in real time. Like an example is, if you're scraping LinkedIn, just scrape it right before you're going to do the right before you need the information, scrape it then, and then you have like live data on who works at that company. For passwords specifically, I would recommend, and what we do is we append or kind of mutate the password. So if the person's password has always been like crocodile1234, maybe now it's crocodile22, or it's crocodile 2022, or basically just kind of with passwords specifically, you can enumerate sort of their tactics or the way that they're constructing their password to sort of build a more realistic like password for now. Like what would their password be 10 years later? Because some of the data is like 10 or 15, like anti-public or exploit IN are like at least 10 years old. So thank you for the question.
Good question. Any other questions from the room? Going once, going twice. All right. Thank you very much for coming to Corey Ham's talk.
You. Please use it. Please contribute.
All right, so stay tuned. We have Matt Toussaint coming up. We got a few minutes in between. Take a bio break, grab a beverage, grab a snack of choice, and don't forget to tip your waitresses and luck. Bartenders. I'm just kidding.
I'm still wearing the mic. Here, I'll give you the mic. Oh.
Real quick. Just a reminder, please wear your badge at all times. Otherwise, you might get thrown out of the room.